Okay, so now that we've got this enhanced unit circle filled out, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to apply it, and it's very, very simple. So let's say for our first example, we're trying to figure out sine of 285. Now we could easily use the half angle formula, and we know what we would do, right? We would double that angle 285 and get something like 570, I think. And of course we could figure that out using rotations of the unit circle and this and that. However, since we have this enhanced unit circle, we can basically just look at 285 and figure out what the y value is, right? So if you look at the y value at 285, it's negative square root of 6 plus square root of 2 over 4, and bam, that's what sine is. So you might not know that, you might not memorize this circle, but you can always remember the first quadrant and go from there. So for example, let's say you knew that sine of 75 was square root of 6 plus square root of 2 over 4, right? Well, it's easy to see that at 285, you're just taking this angle and flipping it over the x-axis. So therefore, the y value is just going to become negative, and you're going to stick that negative out front. So if you just remember the first quadrant, you can fill in the rest, and you can do these problems quickly. Now, you might, again, just want to use the half angle formula, again, like I said, make the angle 570 and figure it out from there, and that's totally fine. Okay, I'm just giving you different ways of doing this. Since we already know the unit circle, we might as well add some extra angles to it and apply it. Step 1 is to locate the angle in unit circle, which we've already done. So that angle 285 is right there. Okay, second step is to determine which axis it is closest to. So, next step, which axis is 285 close to? Is it closer to y? Is it closer to x? Well, obviously it's closer to y. So we're going to write the y-axis for step 2. Step 3 is to determine the sign of the trig value. All students take calculus, right? So what does all students take calculus mean? In the first quadrant, all the trig functions are positive. In the second, only sine is positive. In the third, only tangent is positive for the t and take. And in the fourth quadrant, only cosine is positive. See in calculus. Now, I actually really do wish all students took calculus. Unfortunately, they don't, but that's just a little saying to help us remember what's positive. So, since only cosine is positive in the fourth, then I know sine must be negative. So that, again, that's just step 3, which is to determine the sign of the trig value in that quadrant. So again, since we're talking about 285, we know that it's going to be negative in the fourth. Step 4, determine the corresponding angle in the first quadrant. So we're going over steps, which basically, to where if you do these steps, you don't have to remember the enhanced unit circle of the multiples of 15. You can just do it. So what is the corresponding angle in the first quadrant? Now again, the way to answer that question is to look at which axis it is closest to. So if we go and look at our angle, and again we're trying to figure out 285, if we look at that angle, it's closest to the y-axis. So if we go to the first quadrant, which one of these angles is closest to the y-axis? It's this one. Therefore, this is the angle that's going to correspond to this angle. In other words, we're going to use the y value in this angle that's closest to the y-axis, square root of 6 plus square root of 2 over 4, to figure out the y value of 285, which is also closest to the y-axis. So, and I don't want to skip any steps. For step 4, we're just saying that the 75 degree angle is the corresponding angle in the first quadrant. Okay, step 5 is determine the trig value. So I know that sine of 75 is square root of 6 plus square root of 2 over 4, but I just showed that sine must be negative there. So really all I'm going to do is take that value at 75 and multiply it by negative 1. Okay, so for step 6, you're going to multiply that corresponding sign from step 3. So if you look at step 3, we knew that it was negative because it was in the fourth quadrant. So we're going to take this y value in the first quadrant and multiply that by negative 1. Okay, so trust me, you'll get the hang of this the more you do it. So we're going to take this value, this corresponding angle, and multiply it by negative 1. And really, that's all you have to do for this example. There's no simplification. You don't need to distribute the negative into the top or anything. To me, that looks as simple as it possibly gets. So, final answer, sine of 285 is equal to negative square root of 6 plus square root of 2 over 4. However, there is a simplify step because sometimes after you do step 6, there will be some simplification. But for our sake, the final answer, sine of 285 is equal to negative fraction square root of 6 with square root of 2 over 4, which is exactly where this number comes in at 285 on the enhanced unit circle. That's it for this example of sine of 285, evaluating it. If you have any other questions about it, let me know.